everyone, I hope you're all well. I thought I would quickly run you through the leadership essay for HSP403. Now, if you've had me for any other units, you'll know that I like to use daggy little graphics to describe what the task is all about. In this instance, you'll need to do a little bit of thinking and a bit of library research, quite a bit of reading stuff around leadership and management, and then leadership theory specifically, and then thinking a lot then how that applies to your own leadership practice that you do in your everyday work role. And once you've done those things, you've got to type up your response as an essay. Now, this is just one of the two UTAS submitted summative assessment items, the leadership essay and the policy critical analysis and ministerial minute, not the ones that you'll be submitting at the intensive or after the intensive. The leadership essay due date is on the Milo site for you. There's a 2,000 word maximum, and that excludes your reference list, and it is weighted at 30%. Your 2,000 words needs to focus on writing a critical essay discussing the difference between leadership and management. You need to reflect on your own leadership experience and think about this in terms of two contemporary leadership theories or models, and people do use these terms interchangeably to talk about leadership. So something like transformational leadership, transactional leadership, post-industrial leadership. There's a whole bunch of different examples that I'll run you through on the Milo site and so forth. And these theories or models, I suppose, and this is where you need to do your thinking, are what inform your leadership practice. What types of leadership work have you done, and how are they reflective of those two theories or models? And you need to talk about how they've informed your practice as a leader in your organisation, and you need to research this and do some include research literature and set readings to inform your response overall. So I've given you a suggested structure for this because it makes it a little bit easier for you. You've sort of got a 200 word introduction, I suppose, one paragraph, not a series of sentences, an actual paragraph of at least 5 sentences. Make sure you introduce your topic overall in your assignment, and then include a roadmap of what each section in your essay will talk about. So the first section will discuss the differences between leadership and management. The second section will talk about blah. Finally, the essay will conclude blah. Then you need to compare and contrast leadership and management. You've got 500 words to do this, which is not a huge amount. So you're looking at maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs, depending on how you format it. What does the research literature say about leadership and management? And talk about the similarities and differences in this section. And it's useful to try and think about how you can organise it around main similarities and differences. And you haven't got much word count, so it's probably the main difference and the main similarity across those two concepts. Then you need to discuss your 2 theories or models of leadership and make reflective links to your practice. And this is about 1,000 words, so you've got a lot more space here. And you could structure this in a few different ways. I've just given you a couple of examples. So one person might describe the 2 theories first, and then follow this with this section talking about how these link to their practice, or it, and making sure that you've got paragraphs within those different sections. Another person might actually find the themes across both of the theories or models and talk about each theme in a paragraph, noting how each theme links back to their practice in those paragraphs. So it's up to you how you approach it. Either one of these ways of doing it is fine. Then you'll need a conclusion, about 200 words, where you summarise your main points and talk about what, so what for the future, I guess, what you've found. And then, of course, you've got a list of references. You can pretty much pick any type of Harvard style, but the easiest no-brainer option for you is to use the Harvard style that's up on the UTAS site for you. Some general tips for this task. Yes, it's okay to use first person. There are also many different models and theories of leaderships different forms of leadership that we talk about. There's some listed in the question above. There's others, laissez-faire leadership, relational leadership, theories of followership, member exchange, symbolic leadership, micropolitics approach to leadership, role theory leadership, and social learning theory of leadership. All of these are different ways of doing leadership, and you can see that there's quite a bit of crossover with these different models and theories and all of those types of things. So some ways of doing leadership can be described in the research literature as both a model and a theory. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your searches and all of that sort of stuff. And writers will use those terms interchangeably. Some other tips. Read the wording of the question carefully. Sometimes students can overlook one part for another part, so they might spend the entire essay talking about leadership and management, and they don't actually reflect on their own practice. Make sure you check the question, and do a check before you submit the assignment using the marking rubric. Make sure you include specific discussion, examples about your own practice. Include at least one reference per paragraph. This is a basic rule to make sure that you've got enough sources. And check the marking rubric for specific information on how many sources you need overall. And use your standard essay structure. You're lucky enough that this task has been done by other students in the past. Some common problems have been people not using research literature to link to their reflective practice. So reflective practice becomes analysis when you talk about your practice and link it with the research you have found. Okay, that's what you need to do. Follow-on sentences where people have two sentences joined together, and often people will have this using the word however in the middle. If you've got the word however in the middle of a sentence, it usually means that it's a new sentence and you need to start a new sentence. Some people don't use subheadings. This is a really good way of sorting out the different parts of your essay, making sure that you're on track. So I'd recommend that you use subheadings. Other common problems are things like incomplete paragraphs, so people only using 1 to 2 sentences in each paragraph. You need to make sure that you've got at least 5 sentences. Others have unclear paragraphs where they don't have linking or transition sentences. These are what create an argument or a vertical thread in your work. So make sure that you read about how to do that and look at the videos about how to do that online, and then include that in your work. Some people use too many quotes. Please keep these at a minimum. They really take away from your own work, and if you're only including a lot of quotes, it does raise questions about how much of the work is your own. Some people also use unclear referencing. They don't cite the literature in the correct manner, or alternatively, it's not listed in the reference list. So how can we learn more about what to do for this task in the marking rubric? It talks about how you need to apply theoretical and practical knowledge to manage human and financial resources. That's your learning outcome. Your criteria is about articulating the differences between leadership and management. So detailed discussion of the specific differences between leadership and management. Then we've got, and you can see that it changes across the different levels. Then we've got how you need to apply theoretical and practical knowledge about leadership to analyse your own practices. And you'll see that the criteria goes across the marking rubric again, a detailed application of specific elements of 2 leadership theories to analyse your own leadership practices. And then we've got things around addressing the set task, which is just basically introduction and conclusion, very fluent writing style, assignment formatted appropriately with clear paragraphs, and looking at the number of references that you need to support your ideas. And then finally, you critically reflect on your own leadership practice, and specifically thinking about your future practice. Detailed critical discussion of specific elements of your future leadership practice. So all of these things are what you can use to gauge how well you've done in the different areas and looking at the different assessment criteria. Now, I've got a lot of information up online about how to write an essay. This is just a little reminder that you need to make sure you've got an introduction, and then you've got a body which is made up of subsections, which then have paragraphs in those subsections. And then you've got your conclusion, which summarises your overall approach. And there's some additional links on each of those slides where you can go and learn a bit more about it. But of course, I've got a whole module dedicated to that up online for you on the Milo site as well. I'll give you a couple of example paragraphs. This is one that compares leadership and management, just gives you a general idea of what these paragraphs look like. So the challenge for organisations is to balance management and leadership, which includes having managers who can lead and leaders who can manage. Nice, broad, overarching paragraph talking about the similarities and differences. In general terms, the management role is position-based. Contrastingly, leaders can be superiors, peers, or subordinates. And then there's some discussion about the literature and how it talks about this. And then there's a linking. It stands to reason that if senior executive of an organisation is not open to new ideas, then progressive concepts will not prevail. Now, I think that linking sentence could have been better linked back to the overall point, but you get the idea of what that looks like. A personal reflection example paragraph makes reference to looking at how they specifically do their work. So managing a recent research project required engagement with a number of departments within my organisation. They talk about their process of doing that. Then they refer to the research, in this case Harrison, and then they talk about how things worked or how it didn't work, depending on the different leadership theories. And we can again see a nice linking sentence here. These relationships continue to flourish with ongoing engagement, including participation in the post-project evaluation and validation activities by some stakeholders. And then I've just given you an example of what an introduction and a conclusion look like. I'm not going to talk through these. It's fairly straightforward, but mainly there's a couple of topic sentences at the top of the paragraph, and then at the bottom of the introduction paragraph, you've got, this is what I'm going to do. So first it will talk about, second it will discuss, it will close by detailing the value of leadership. So making sure you've got clear signposting, first, second, third, all of that sort of thing. Your conclusion is very similar because you're summarising your main points, basically, that you've outlined in your introduction and, of course, that you focused on in your overall essay. And then it's got a nice statement at the end which talks about so what for the future and all of that sort of stuff around your own practice. That's pretty much it, folks. If you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. I hope that was helpful for you, and I'll speak with you all again soon. See you later.